Greetings all, this is Hairy Nick, back again to talk about some more X-Wing spoilers. It's been a little bit quiet over the past couple of weeks after the major reveals at the conventions for Wave 4 and 5, but earlier today, just this morning, we had FFG stream from their headquarters some of the content of Wave 4. A couple of the X-Wing creators had a game where we had Republic versus Resistance, a very weird combination, but nevertheless, a bunch of new Wave 4 cards were spoiled as part of that. Also, we had a couple of things spoiled for the Separatist, which we'll talk about last in this video because it's easily the most hyped thing, but yes, this video is just going to be a hodgepodge of random stuff being revealed. A few generic cards which look really good, and a few faction-specific stuff. So without further ado, let's dive into these, which are a couple of generic weapons, non-faction specific, the plasma torpedoes and auto blasters. Something that I'm very, very curious about. Both of these potentially give certain platforms a lot more relevancy. In the case of the plasma torpedoes, that we'll talk about first, particularly things like the Jump Master, even maybe the Sick Interceptor. We'll have to wait and see. And this has a very similar design like it had in first edition, but with all the same sort of second edition caveats that we come to expect. Fires with one less dice. You don't spend a lock, you just spend the charge, but you obviously have to have a lock. During the neutralize result step, critical results are cancelled before hit results. After this attack hits, the defender loses one shield. And those two sentences together at first got me a little bit baffled, but I kind of see what's going on here. This is a very streamlined approach to just delivering as many raw hit results as possible. This is about punching through shields and not providing crits, which is a good thing and a bad thing. It means that we can get a basic sort of cheaper torpedo that is just efficient and able to supply a lot of hit results. It's a bad thing because something that cannot, or at the very least is worse at supplying crits and does more damage against shields, you're far more incentivized to shoot that sooner rather than later, and you're far more incentivized to use it as an early alpha strike. Kind of like what the old plasma torpedoes did, so hopefully it doesn't skew the list building too much, but the good thing is, if it does, they can just up the points, and that shouldn't be too much of an issue. But yes, the biggest reason that I'm curious about this is because of how badly the Jump Master is performing right now. Look, nobody wants it to go back to the way it was, where we had a Jump Master meta where everyone was taking 2-ofs and 3-ofs in like major tournaments around the world. But it's really doing absolutely awful at the moment, so just making it fair and viable without being oppressive would be a fantastic thing. Moving over to the auto blasters, this fires at range 1 to 2, 2 red dice, and just a reminder guys, in case you've forgotten, cannons do get range bonuses, so this would fire at 3 red dice at range 1, just like the first edition one, although that did not fire at range 2. If the defender is inside your bullseye firing arc, roll 1 additional die, so that would actually be 4 at range 1. During the neutralize result step, if you're not in the defender's firing arc, evade results do not cancel critical results. So yes, we have a sort of call back to the design of the original auto blasters where certain results cannot be cancelled, except now it's critical results, and not being able to cancel just regular hit results is probably a little bit more easy to exploit. Not being able to cancel critical results, I mean, yes, there are times when that could just absolutely spike out of control, and all of a sudden, like, you roll 2 crit results and your opponent just has to take it. But I feel like there's enough hard limiters on this that it is okay. And probably most importantly, we were just speaking about this the other day in the last video I put on the channel, this card is something that B-Wing players want to take a very close look at. As a knife fighter, it wants to be aggressive. It wants to fire at range 1. This card wants to work in range 1. Using the bullseye firing arc is much easier at range 1. Yes, Rebel players with B-Wings, absolutely pay attention to this. I think this is going to be something that may just give the platform the amount of relevance it needs. It's got to be cost effective enough, but we just don't have effects like this in the cannon slot right now. Heavy laser cannon only firing the bullseye firing arc. The ion cannon giving you kind of control options where it's not really helping you on just raw offense. Yeah, I'm very excited to see what auto blasters can do. Okay, let's move on to some Republic-specific cards. A couple of pilots, Padme Amidala at Initiative 4. While an enemy ship in your forward-firing arc defends or performs an attack, that ship can modify only one eyeball result. Other results can still be modified, and when it says other results, and I don't love the wording on this, it's referring to like other blanks, hits, crits, or evades. Just not other eyeball results. That's interesting. It feels really, really niche. That's really bad against like droids and Jedis and that kind of thing. It's only relevant if your opponent wants to be spending focus tokens, and even then they might just want to spend a focus token and change one result anyway. I don't like this. This is very unexciting to me. Let's move over to the boy who spins with Anakin Skywalker. Again, Initiative 4 has one force charge, as we probably came to expect. Before you reveal your maneuver, you may spend a force to barrel roll. This is not an action. Yes, Anakin can barrel roll multiple times a turn. They did it, guys. They went for the meme, and I quite like that. That's kind of fun, to be honest. And considering the speeds that the N1 Starfighter can fly at, considering they can just generate free evade results, considering we just got a droid that allows you to use evade results on offense, doing 2 barrel rolls a turn does not actually seem like a terrible strategy at all. It seems like a pretty solid piece of maneuverability. Again, on Initiative 4, I've spoken about this before, FFG seem to be putting a lot of power in the Initiative 4 slot, so we have decent brawlers. Yeah, Anakin looks like a lot of fun. I can't imagine him like being top tier meta playable. I just don't see what kind of archetype he fits into. But it's possible. I mean, Initiative 4, it can take torpedoes. Pictured here is a build that used him with plasma torpedoes, and that might be a good fun build to be able to do. Again, if he's cost effective enough, but he is a force user. That usually comes with a pretty hefty price tag. I'm not overly excited about this, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Maybe as like filler in some lists, it just balances out right alongside other Jedi. Who knows? Who knows? Could be a lot of fun. Let's move over to these Resistance spoilers, because we had a couple of upgrade cards. Cadel Connix, that's an awesome name. A Resistance-only crew member. After you reveal your dial, you may set your dial to a basic maneuver of the next higher speed. While you execute that maneuver, increase its difficulty. Now, these crew cards are very relevant on the Resistance because they also go on the Falcon and Star Fortress. Look, I don't know about using this on the Resistance transport. Yes, it was used in this stream, but I don't think that's necessarily trying to show you the highest power level of this card. It's more to show it off. Interesting interaction with this on the Falcon. You can actually turn an S loop into a 4 straight. You can't turn a 2-speed into an S loop because you can't turn it into a non-basic maneuver, but it can turn a non-basic maneuver into a basic maneuver, so I guess whenever that's relevant, that can be a thing. I don't really know where this fits. I'm curious about that application on the Falcon. If it's cheap enough, again, that's always a pretty big caveat with that kind of platform. It's interesting on the Star Fortress because you can jet away from your bombs, but I also kind of think if that's a strategy you want to use, you probably would have just dialed in the faster maneuver anyway. I'm always on the fence with these cards that can change your maneuvers, like Seasoned Navigator, Slave 1, all that kind of stuff. Because I always basically default back to this whole notion that, well, you're probably just going to dial in what you want it to fly anyway most of the time if you're experienced with that ship. And look, there are going to be fringe situations where, look, you could say, take this on the Falcon, and suddenly you're in a situation where the S-loop or the 4 straight, one of those might be better depending on what your opponent does, and having the option later on to change it is fantastic. But that scenario that I just described is so niche, and it might make this card a bit less than playable. This kind of ability is not highly sought after in terms of points. Slave 1 went down significantly in the first points change, so I would not be surprised if Cadel is relatively cheap, and that may cause a fringe argument for her to see meta play, but I'm just not seeing it just yet. The other crew option that we got on the Resistance was GA97, and this one is much more interesting. It's also a bit of a mind warp, so I'll explain to you guys exactly how this interaction works. 5 charges that recur 1 every turn, adds the calculate action, set up before place forces step. You may spend 3 to 5 charges. If you do, choose another friendly ship and assign It's the Resistance, do this ship. It's the Resistance read, set up, start in reserves. So in other words, the ship that you chose with GA97 starts in reserves. When you deploy, you are placed within range 1 of a table edge and beyond range 3 of any enemy ship. At the start of the round, if all the friendly GA97 charges are active, you must deploy, then remove this card. After a friendly GA97 is destroyed, you must deploy, then gain 1 disarm token and remove this card. So that whole thing with 5 charges is basically you setting up a timer for when this must deploy. If you, for example, spend 3 charges, it'll take 3 extra turns. At the start of the 4th turn, this ship that you put the condition on will deploy. If you spend all 5 charges, the ship will deploy at the start of the 6th round of the game, which is a lot of forward planning. Kind of a weird interaction if your opponent just destroys all of your ships and then has to wait like a turn or 2. I mean, that's not likely to happen, but it could, and that could lead to some funny game states. Yeah, that's just kind of weird. I just feel like I like that FFG have employed this charge system to make these game mechanics quite clean. I am a bit trepidatious when they go like real full bore with this kind of complexity, because while I think it's okay and look after your opponent explains what's going on, it works quite well, it works quite cleanly, but I don't know how sticky and easy this kind of thing is to learn. I am a bit concerned about this level of complexity. But look, a really cool mechanic nonetheless. I'm not really sure why you'd want to specifically deploy a ship later. You can have a bit of fun with Poe Dameron. The quickest you can deploy any ship is the start of round 4. And look, deploying Poe anywhere around the table edge could be good, but having to wait the first 3 rounds, I don't know. That feels like your opponent can punish you too much. If you're basically presenting your ships to your opponent like one by one, which is essentially what this is doing. If you attack too soon with your other ship not deployed yet, it means your opponent has fewer ships shooting back at them, and they could potentially remove a ship before you even have all your ships on the table. It seems quite dangerous. What's really cool about this is it gives you the calculate action, and that has synergy with the C-3PO crew card. That's really, really cool. We can talk about strategies that use like the Star Fortress, the Resistance Falcon. We saw in the example of this game on FFG stream, they used multiple transports, one with GA97, one with C-3PO. Could be interesting. It is worth pointing out that yes, meta play on the Resistance is all focused around the A-Wing and X-Wing, and neither of those can take crew, which kind of sucks, but maybe this is just the kind of stuff that the Resistance Falcon and the Star Fortress needed to see more relevant. So cool, I love the design. I'm not sure about its competitive playability, but we will see. We got a pilot revealed for the transport pod in Rose Tico at Initiative 3. While you defend or perform an attack, you may reroll up to 1 of your results for each other friendly ship in the attack arc, which would be yours when you're attacking an enemy ship or your opponent's when you're defending. Kind of weird, but that's how it works. This is something that gets a nice aggressive bonus if you're flying this alongside aces, gets a defensive bonus when you're flying in formation, but doesn't really seem to benefit on both ends, which is kind of awkward. It's like Talonbane Cobra. It works great long range for defense, great close range for offense, but you rarely get those bonuses at the same time. Rose Tico, I worry, is going to have the same problem, so I'm not super jazzed about that pilot ability, if I'm to be honest. We had a couple of more pilots here. There's a generic Initiative 1 Logistics Division pilot. Also, Pamich Nero Good. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Initiative 3. While you have 2 or fewer stress tokens, you may execute red maneuvers even while stressed. And that's really, really good actually, because this has a lot of red maneuvers on it. It has 1 hard turns that are red, full stop. Reverse banks at 1 speed, 3 bank forward, and 4 straight. All of those things are red. Yeah, that seems really, really cool if positioning is super important, and this can take an auto blaster, so Yeah, maybe. Annoying thing is, it can't, like, jam or coordinate after it does a red maneuver. It can only do these maneuvers, so I don't know, if, like, one of these crew options really relies on positioning, that could be good. We know that Princess Leia, or I guess General Leia, is going to be a thing on the Resistance. We've also got things like General Holdo and other cards, so look, maybe this is going to be super relevant. It does work interestingly with Cadal Conics. Being able to change things to red maneuvers when you otherwise wouldn't be able to do them. Remember, you can't use Cadal's ability regularly if you're already stressed. So, that's kind of fun, I suppose. I don't know. I feel like there needs to be a better payoff for that pilot ability. Auto Blaster seems interesting. Actually, that build with Auto Blaster and Cadal Conics was used on stream. I just don't think that's particularly exciting. I think they're going to be much better things this platform can do. I think it's going to be more about the crew options like your Palpace's style list. That's probably what this ship's going to be doing. It's nice to see some really cool design on stream nonetheless. Lastly, moving over to this bonus pilot that we had revealed for the Separatists. DBS 404 on the Hyena Bomber, Initiative 4. Preservation Protocols not found, 404. Excellent work on the naming conventions there, FFG. You can perform primary attacks at range 0. While you perform an attack at range 0 to 1, you must roll one additional die. After the attack hits, suffer a critical damage. Yeah, just punch your opponent's ships really, really hard in the face. Take damage in response. I like that. That could be a lot of stupid fun in combination with certain missiles. I mean, using this with like advanced proton torpedoes, if you manage to make that work, it could be janky, but could be fun as well. But yes, let's move on to the thing that everyone is talking about, the Electro proton bomb. Takes up a bomb and a modification slot. You must have a reload, white or red, does not matter. Actually, speaking of that, just before we move on, that means on certain factions, Rebel, we're looking at Y-Wings and K-Wings. On the Empire, we're looking at TIE Bombers, TIE Punishers. On the Scum faction, we're looking at Y-Wings and Fire Sprays with the Andrasta upgrade card. Not Skirk Bombers, sorry guys, they don't have reloads, so they can't take this. Obviously, Hyena Bombers. Star Fortresses, and I've probably missed at least one thing, but that's currently where it's at. Nothing on the First Order. Seems about right. This is very similar to a lot of other bombs, except it's unique. You can only have absolutely one of these in your list, only has a single charge, and despite the fact that it must go on a ship with reload, you only ever get to use this once. It cannot be recovered, which is good. I like how hard this is limited, given what it can do. During the system phase, you may spend a charge, drop an Electro proton bomb with the one forward template, and then place one fuse marker on this device. Now, the fuse marker is an interesting new mechanic they've added in. So what happens is when this would detonate with a fuse marker, you take off a fuse marker instead. And when you don't have any fuse markers left, it just detonates as usual. So there's actually a 1 round delay on this, meaning you drop it, end of activation, take off the fuse marker, end of the next activation, so after every ship's had a chance to fly away from it, you take off another one, which is probably a good thing given what this can do. When this detonates, each ship at range 0 to 2 rolls 4 attack dice. Each ship loses 1 shield for each blank result, gains 1 ion token for each focus or hit result, and 1 disarm token for each critical result. So this can do a lot of damage, and I must stress can, because I'm seeing on a few various forums that people are losing their mind off of this. And look, before I talk about what this does, I just want to say I think this is absolutely safe. I think people just need to calm down a little bit. It's not going to break the game. Don't worry, guys. There are a lot of caveats going on here. First of all, yes, you can fly away. You get a 1 round delay, meaning that your ships can just fly away from it. Basically, the only way to really, really catch your opponents out with this is to do a lot of planning and basically put them into a place where either they're going to take the damage or they're going to fly in a much worse position. There are very few situations where you're absolutely guaranteed to catch your opponent's ship on it. Now, listen, if they land directly on top of it, a lot of ships can't get away from that. Being range 2 means they would essentially have to do like a 6-speed maneuver, or just do like a 4 and boost or something like that, which is not impossible. But yeah, there's a lot of opportunity cost in the fact that it delays by one, and you have to be super accurate, and it has to be in a certain situation where you can punish your opponent for flying away from it. Also, I really want to point this out, guys, because I think a lot of people are really excited about this, really angry about it, and I want to point out the fact that bombs in particular prey on things with low amounts of health like TIE fighters, vulture droids, and this is categorically bad against those things. This does not prey on swarms because it cannot do hull damage, and affecting a ship with ion or disarm tokens just is not impactful against those platforms. Yes, look, you can ion a whole heap of small ships at once, and that is good because you can control where a swarm flies. But look, there's going to be the odd ship that just blanks out on those dice, so only gets criticals. And look, disarm does not really matter that much when you have a whole heap of ships. One of them not shooting is rarely that consequential. I think the ion is a powerful thing, but given all the caveats with this card, yeah, I don't know. I think this is going to be very good against big base ships, and look, we don't really like things preying on big base ships right now. That's kind of rough. Given its narrow application, given that it's categorically bad against things that bombs are usually very good against, given the fact, yes, this has a variable points cost, FFG is not going to make this thing cheap, given that it has narrow applications in terms of its platform, given that it's unique, I don't think this is going to destroy the meta. I don't think this is going to lead to a lot of degenerate play. I'm making this call right now, guys. I think this is going to see fringe play at most. It's okay, guys. I think all the salt that's being thrown around about this is premature. Happy to be proven wrong, but guys, I think it's pretty safe. I think it's pretty safe. That's the call I'm making right now. In any case, that's all the information we had from Wave 4 from this particular stream. As more information on this wave develops, I will cover it. We're looking like we're actually going to have a pretty close release. We may have another situation where FFG are sort of just getting out all these articles quick smart because they need to get all the information out before the wave drops. We actually had the Jedi Starfighter article release on the day of the Jedi Starfighter. That was kind of awkward. Hopefully we start to get some articles from this and I can talk about it. But in the meantime, do not forget to like and subscribe. Like me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter and Reddit. Please consider supporting my Patreon. Really appreciate it, guys. Any money that can go towards this channel really helps things tick along, helps us keep the lights on. In the meantime, I'll catch you guys later on.